Welcome to the Pirate Broadcast, where we interview interesting people doing interesting things, where you can expand your connections, your community. Kindness is cool and smiles are free. And let's get this party started. Your community. Welcome to the party. Welcome to the party. And let's get we have somebody already on here. Your community. He's got a tab open.
I feel like I'm on Max Headroom. I feel like I'm on Max Headroom.
There you go. There's the delay. Does this feel like what we were doing the other day, Erika?
I feel like I'm on Max Headroom.
There you go. There's the delay. Who has
Do
a
I need to
second
leave
tab
and come
open?
back?
Are we good now?
Sibilance.
That's better.
More better. Well,
More
welcome
better.
to the party, everyone. Welcome to the party. Thank you so much for setting this up, Erika, and gathering up Scotty and Evan. And I just want to welcome you to the Pirate Broadcast at night. Scotty, we were trying to get you on the show, but obviously 7 a.m. in the morning, my time, is a little off schedule for you. So I'm glad that we finally got to connect and catch up.
Yeah, and you know what? Erika asked me about a week ago to come on the show, and I said, yeah, absolutely, anytime, right? And we had this massive storm come through here, which decimated where I live, and it was a 1 in 100-year storm. So I've actually been a little bit missing in action for the last week as well. So, but great to be on here, Russ, mate. I've been following your stuff. It's awesome.
I appreciate it, Scotty. Thank you so much. And Evan's here. He's in the room, and I just want to thank you so much for joining us, Evan. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time out of your day to join us. So I have to ask you where Flower, Texas is.
Oh,
now his mic is off.
Evan, are you on mute?
Yeah, I was getting some echo. It's between Dallas, Fort Worth, and the airport is kind of where Flower Mound is next to.
Okay.
Yeah, I was getting some echo. It's between Dallas,
You're
Fort
getting
Worth,
the echo, Evan.
and the airport is kind
You
of
have a
where
second
Flower
tab
Mound
open.
is next to. Okay. Yeah, I was getting some echo. It's between Dallas, Fort Worth, and the airport is kind of where Flower Mound is next to. Okay. Yeah, I was getting some echo. I'll work on it.
Okay. Let's go. So Erika, while he's working on that, we'll check in with you and see what's happening with you tonight.
I'm with you. I'm being blessed by 3 handsome men on a podcast on LinkedIn. All is well with the world. I'm on cloud 9.
So it's interesting because you're connected to all of us, yet we're not necessarily all connected. So what's the connection how did you arrive at this connection?
You apparently like rude females who forget to introduce the 3 of you once we're on air. Totally didn't realize the 3 of you didn't know each other. The connection is probably, it's LinkedIn for one. But Russ, with you and I, it was social media concierge when we were doing that not-for-profit work, doing engagement and marketing assets for other not-for-profits. And then with me and Evan, it's, our background in sales, and we do a lot of JV things together. And then with Scotty, it was System 1357, and he just edgeifying me in about every single way possible on how do you properly start up a business and scale it and build it with an eye towards exit. So if you all don't know Scotty Schindler, you need to get connected and check out his System 1357, because there's a lot of great content on there, especially for salespeople, marketing people, and solopreneurs.
Absolutely, 100%. And I want to dive into it a little bit, Scotty, because there's, everybody in business needs sales. However, not every business owner understands the roadmap for building, scaling, and exiting. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the source of this inspiration of starting the System 1357 and what it means and what people can understand and appreciate that you have going on here.
I can do that for you. I'll try to keep this really brief. So basically, when I started the company, built the company, it was all around everything that's in System 1357. So System 1357 is actually a whole heap of experiences that I went on that journey to build the company. But see, I didn't have System 1357 when I exited the company. So I did have a successful exit. But I got asked to speak for all sorts of things. And I thought I need a way of packaging this up. It took 2 years to come up with what was the package, what's the system people can follow, and it became System 1357. So essentially, it's all the systems that I implemented in the business in 1990s, right through the 2000s, through to the exit. And like I said, when I exited, people wanted to know, well, how did I do that? I'm 46 years old. I'm financially independent. I'm basically self-funded retiree. How? Well, that's how. And I share it for free. And that's how I got in. Erika was a partner there. And, I share a lot of that information for free because I love the entrepreneurial journey. I love the people out there striving for the extra mile, striving to achieve their goals and doing all the grit and determination needed. So my goal is to share some of that knowledge so people can work smarter rather than harder. So that's System 1357 in a minute and a half.
So how did you come up with the name?
Good question. Well, actually, in the 90s, I worked for an American insurance company. And they had a whole heap of systems to teach us what to do and a whole heap of courses and training and sales. I mean, they understood the philosophy. If I win, they win. So they were teaching. But one of the things they taught us was the 1357 plan. And I was riding my bike one day and I went, hey, I had a 1357, but it wasn't a plan. And I was more into systems than plans. And I went, it was actually more like a System 1357. Well, I had 1357 system, and then I realized it was better to be System 1357. So my 1357 is completely different to the 1357 I was taught in the 90s, but it's a 1357 of all the systems I did to start the company, grow the company, exit from the company. So where it came from, I borrowed that name off the insurance company of the 1357, even though it's completely different. I borrowed it. I went, wow, those guys were so good at training me that 30 years later, I'm still motivated and inspired from the knowledge I got as an 18-year-old kid from the American insurance company. And I'll be forever grateful for those days.
Yeah. Those are experiences that we all have to appreciate because, good, bad, or indifferent, we all have experience that teaches us where we need to end up. And it's like we were talking earlier, Evan, did you get your audio squared away?
I think so.
All right. So, falling back on what Scotty's explaining and some of the experience that he had, I know you're in sales and some of the things that you've gone through, good, bad, challenging, and coming through that. What are some of the things that you're doing in the sales arena that are building systems and helping business owners in expanding your brand?
Well, I think first off, one of the stories that made me empathize with what Scotty was saying is, he was probably so impressionable at that age that he was actually open to learning. And I think so many times that's first step number one. You got to be open to learning something before you can let anything else new in. Yeah. And that's really a neuroscience-based, concept that we haven't realized are, I guess, as explicit as they are in our own performance. So we're doing some things with neuroscience to bring that to the forefront. But Scotty, it also made me think of, the time that I worked at the Dallas Business Journal, and we had, every time we got a new sales manager, we had another sales training, and we had the same sales training, 3 times. And I was like, why do I still have to go through this? I'm still here. The manager's new, not me, Yeah. But what actually was happening as I looked back is now I train people in sales. And so while I may have not liked it at the time, it sure as hell was teaching me something, right? That I retained and now I obviously value, because that's exactly what I do for my clients.
And that's through Springboard.
That's correct.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that you mentioned that you know where you're from for those that may not know you yet, and everyone, please, you know, if you're joining this live or you're joining this in the future or you're listening to the podcast or wherever you happen to consume this content, connect with these individuals. They're amazing, talented people that are willing to help and contribute back to the community. So I encourage everyone to at least engage in their comments and their content that they're putting out there. So thank you, Evan, for that. And Erika, I want to ask you, because we've talked about systems multiple times, and what comes to mind for you when we're talking about systems? Because I think that's an important subject to actually expand on.
For me, I think systems lend to consistency. I think without systems, it's very easy to get overwhelmed. And then when we get overwhelmed, we get confused. And then we just start spinning our wheels. So I have learned so much, you know, from Evan, especially with what he does, you know, on a neuroscientific level, you know, with sales teams, and learning what you know my positive drivers are, and then what my negative drivers are, and trying to work systems around that to make sure I'm not, you know, tripping over negative drivers. And then with Scotty and his system, you know, 1357, with his sugar and cream and the fish attracting devices, and, you know, the Trojan horse, which is not what you think it is. You know, there was just so much that helped me get more in alignment for success throughout my day. And if it weren't for Evan even saying, okay, you need to step away and you need to go take a walk, you're working way too hard at this. You know, so when I think of systems, the two gentlemen that are here with us are so highly versed in it. And I do recommend people get connected with them and check out, you know, Springboard Consulting and System 1357. And I did put 1357 again, the link in the comments. But for me, when I work with virtual sales mastery and coaching and teaching teams, or maybe somebody's asking me to do it for them because they don't have a team, I'm just going to tell you right now, that's going to cost you way more than if I just coach you. So going to put that out there, you know. So for me, people are wanting to get more recurring revenue from the right people and shorten their sales cycles while doing that. You have to have a system. You have to get a lock on who your ideal client is. You have to know what their problem is. You can't just say who you are. You need to speak to what their problem is. And then you need to have a targeted, vetted, outbound approach going hand in hand with an organic, free, you know, inbound approach. Stop thinking it's going to be pay-per-click that does it for you, because there are better ways of doing it. LinkedIn's one of them. And then targeting like you're on beast mode and just being super consistent about it. And, you know, if we have time, maybe later I'll talk about the bonus tip that wraps it all up in a pretty little bow, gift wrapped.
Well, I know that there are, you know, one of the things that I've always valued, and maybe you can all speak on it, is consistency. You know, showing up, having a plan, working a plan, and just taking the time and effort to let it grow and nurture and develop. Because I'm a professional squirrel hunter. I get distracted by tools and techniques and, you know, new things and courses and all the things that are online. And it's common practice now. There's no shortage of information, but there's shortage of attention. So how can we work towards getting past that and focusing on consistency and building systems, Scotty?
Well, yeah, I don't mind starting if you'd like, but the consistency is one of the biggest things and one of the biggest factors. And a lot of that comes back down to knowing who you are and what you want, and having those long-term goals and those plans. I mean, I'm already talking to people now about what's your 2023 look like? And people are going, what, 2023? What about 2022? Well, you should have been thinking about that last year. You know, so what you're thinking about in Do you want the good news or the bad news? The bad news is there's only 60 weeks till 2023 starts. The good news is you've still got time to put things in place of how you want to start 2023. And then you can work your way back. And that's how you can keep consistency going, because you've got these long-term goals. Things just become obstacles, or things become situations you've got to deal with. And rather than showstoppers, or, you know, well, I don't know what to do next. Well, you can stay consistent. Yeah, you can drop a few eggs, but keep going. And it's about having that long-term trajectory. So, you know, it's not long before I'm going to start suggesting to people, what's your 2024 look like? Yeah, because that's how you stay consistent on a day-to-day basis, is because you know what's needed to do next. You know, I said to you, we just had a storm come through here. So my last week's been mayhem, but it's not changing my goals for next year. Yeah. It's interruptions. And that's how people stay consistent everyday business. It's through that knowing who they are and what they want to be long-term, and everything else is just obstacles they've got to overcome.
I love that. I love that. I want to talk a little bit about setting near-term goals versus longer-term goals. You know, you're projecting into business, you know, to you know, a year, 2 years from now, wherever it happens to be. There's also that immediate need to, what actions are the most important for me to take today, and long-term goals help develop that task list, I guess.
Yeah.
And I guess from a sales perspective, Evan, what drives, you know, the behavior, the thought process, and actually executing on these actions that we can take daily? I mean, how can we start thinking about this to improve our consistency?
Well, I think sometimes you can't even think about it because they are on a subconscious level. So, you know, there are things that can get in your way. And those things come in the form of, maybe you're too skeptical, maybe you're too controlling, maybe you have negative self-talk, so it's self-defeating, maybe you have low levels of self-consciousness. You know, there's these things that are innately human to us, emotions and things that we have to deal with. And when Scotty was talking about setting the long range goals, you know, that is absolutely how you weather the short-term storms that come about, because then you can just, you know, navigate around those. But the number one, you know, separation between selling like a champ and selling like a contender, or being a contender, is the consistency piece. And so being able to take that vision and to break it down into actionable steps that you can then say, okay, these are my leading indicators of success. Meaning, you know, if I do these things day in and day out, they're tactical in nature, but they're also strategically aligned to my objectives that are helping me reach my goals. If you can do that as an individual, you'll maintain consistency. If you can do that as a sales team, you can maintain consistency and you can build a high performing team. But it takes that, okay, I got to realize that, you know, my goal may be to lose 30 pounds, but if I want to do it in 30 days, that means I got to have an objective of losing 1 pound a day. So what's my strategy going to be? And then what is the thing that I'm going to do? You know, for most people, it'd probably be starve yourself. That would be the realistic way to get there, if you ever watch shows like Naked and Afraid or something like that, right? But you got to be able to take that long term and connect the short term and really have it planned out, because it's in those small steps, those tactical steps, where you can say, hey, I've been consistent for 21 days. I'm going to take a break, right? Because I've earned it. And be sure to celebrate meeting those short-term goals that'll help you reach your long-terms.
Cheat goal. We're going to need a cheat goal, right?
It's always got to be at least 10%. You know, you can't be perfect all the time. You got to have a little 10%.
Yeah. One of the things I'm challenged by is knowing, you know, okay, what is the most important thing and what's the most critical thing? So Erika, I mean, from a sales perspective, you're very methodical. You're very consistent, and everything that I see is you're an action taker and getting things done. So how do you decide what is the highest priority item on your list?
I learned something. God bless these ladies. I learned so much when I was within the Mary Kay organization. I probably learned more about business and time management being in that profoundly gifted group of women and men, but mostly women, than I ever did in my minor for business. I mean, I learned more in 6 weeks than I've read in books. But one of the things they taught, and Mary Kay Ash did this herself, was the 6 most important thing to-do list. Your to-do list should never be more than 6 things. And sometimes I really have to chastise my own self because I'll start packing it in. Yeah. But you have 6 most important things. You figure out what those are the night before. This is all short term. You figure it out the night before and you write them down. And your first 3 on that list have to be income producing. And you have to do those first 3 before the end of the day. And then let's say you don't get to number 5 and 6. Those don't become number 1 and 2 the next day. They're still number 5 and 6 the next day. It's always the top 3 have to be your income revenue producing activities.
Dive a little deeper in that. Can you dive a little deeper in that income producing? Is that like means sales calls? Is that booking?
It's your prospecting, it's your sales calls, it's your connection requests, it's your outreach, it's your anything that is targeted to drive sales. It does not mean that you front load all of your actual discovery calls, being on the phone one-on-one with people first thing in the morning. No, it's your prospecting and anything like that. That's first thing. Then those calls that you're scheduling one-on-one with people should happen later in the day. I like to schedule mine between, 11 and 4. And then anything that has to do with the note taking and all of that, the emails, any more connection requests, the updating of the CRM, that happens in the evening in my off hours, typically. So.
Is there really any off hours? I mean, are there really any off hours?
Well, I am scaling and ramping. There will come a time where it happens at maybe 5 before, I go do dinner. Yeah. So.
I love it. I love it. Scotty, someone that's been in business and developed from the insurance industry years ago, a lot of things have developed and changed over the years. And I think it's really important for us to understand and appreciate the fact that, these things are consistent, making the calls, following up, taking notes, making sure that, they say the fortune is in the follow-up. And whether we're having a storm in your neck of the woods or we're, experiencing any kind of thing that is around us, the peaks and valleys are going to happen. And so how do we stay motivated and inspired to do this daily activity? What are some things that you've experienced along your journey?
Well, necessity is a good one. That keeps you motivated. Paying bills. I've got a bit of echo. Is that me? No.
Still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
So, when it comes to sales, I was very blessed that I worked with that American insurance company, and they taught me everything to do with sales. And then when I started teaching sales, like Evan is now, and doing that as a trainer, as opposed to being a salesperson, you started to understand not what, but why. Why do these words work? Why does this sequence work? And one of the ways to stay motivated is to really try to become an expert at your business. So it's not just going out and talking to people, but constantly going to people like Evan and training and learning. Getting someone like Erika to come in and look at your systems and look at your recurring revenues and work out how to work smarter rather than harder. So staying motivated. If you can actually reach a level where you think you're at the top of your business, but the reality is there's so much more opportunity out there by starting to fine tune that system and that process and working smarter. And you start to achieve twice as much in half the time. And that comes from fine tuning all that sales process that you have in that sales system, whether it's your conversation or your product delivery. But staying motivated is really hard as a salesperson. You have a really good run. It's easy to sit in the coffee shop in your glory going, how good's this? Well,
Yeah.
you're only just starting, right? It's a long journey. If you want to achieve success in life, well, it's a long journey, and you have to continually stay motivated. And if you want to ask me, the number one thing to stay motivated is I'm all for goals and rewarding yourself, but always keep a carrot in front of you. Don't go and buy that really good car yet when you don't need it. Try and invest your money into other things that make more money instead of buying the holiday home or something else you don't need. Try to do investments, and always keep something in front of you to keep what I call that sense of urgency. And it's that sense of urgency, that need and that must, that I have to do things, that drives people. And sometimes it just happens because it happens. You have to do things. And other times things are going really good and it's really hard to stay motivated. So try to keep things always in front of you that keep your sense of urgency and that self-sense of I have to continue doing all the right things and all the smart things. And that is probably the secret to staying motivated. Even when you're on top of your game, how do you still get out and make those calls when you don't feel like it?
Hey, Scotty, I just wanted to jump in real quick and tell you, when we first created the performance psychology that we utilize today, the thought process was getting people to take some time to be mindful, essentially. And then the second step was getting them to identify, communicate, add urgency, and find resolution. That was essentially the structure of the conversation or the thought process that we had people go through. And so there was a couple of things that were built in there. Number one, finding time to ease your mind, get to a point of no thought. Then you're taking in. Then you're also communicating what you've taken in or what you've thought about or what you've planned so that other people can hold you accountable. And then adding urgency or urgently applying yourself, right? So adding urgency is different. It's kind of like in the sales process when I say, hey, I've only got 20 left, you're adding some urgency. So you're creating some type of, motivation for something, somebody, or something to happen that helps you get to your point of resolution. And that thought process, if you can get that to a point of unconscious competence, then it becomes who you are, and you're forever creating that success in front of you.
That's incredibly powerful, Evan. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you, Scotty, for kind of mapping that out for us. Hopefully, some of the people that are watching, it's really important because I come from more of the operations side. However, we're all in sales at some level, project management. We're always, defining, working with people, making sure that things are taking place and things are moving forward. What are some of the things, Evan, that you've noticed though in the sales process for somebody that's just starting out and, developing their skills and improving their skills? What are some things that are very common that people could tweak and adjust quickly and easily to improve their outcomes?
I mean, I think that the first thing is just knowing yourself as best you can, and I can dive into that. Erika, did you have something that you were going to bring in earlier?
No, well, I was just going to address something that Marsha Reese had commented on, but it can totally wait till after you're done expounding. Okay,
so the number one thing that I see with most salespeople is the confidence piece, right? If you come across that, maybe you don't know your product or service very well, you haven't practiced it enough, you're going to come across as not being confident in the product or service. And then there's also just the whole confidence inside yourself, right? Of who you are and what your plan is and what your purpose is. So typically, the biggest problem that people have is they have a lack of confidence going into these crucial conversations, and they're not able to set themselves up for success. So, what I tell people is that whenever you get that no, or you lose the deal, you probably lost the deal when you set up your approach. Because if you would have had the right approach and you had a qualified candidate, like what Erika was talking about, this is your avatar, that this is the buyer, this is their problem, this is your solution, your approach has to be spot on from the very beginning. And if you screw that up, you're going to lose the deal.
I love that. When you say confidence, because there's a lot of times where, you might be promoting something and you might be selling something that you may not believe in. And that's always a challenge. The other thing is
don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. Exactly.
Don't do it.
It's
not if that's the way you feel, don't do it. And people make the mistake of, I'm going to try. Don't try. Just don't do it.
Yeah, I love it. Let's go back to Marsha's comment, because I think it's important for us to maybe dive into this. I love the 6 things to do, but I must add that those 6 things work perfectly for Mary Kay folks because the bones of the business were in place. For us true from scratch entrepreneurs have such a different set of to-dos every day, but I do love the structure of 6. So expand on that, Erika.
I think that's profound. I think I think Marsha brings up a good point. I think the main thing to take away is the thought of eating the frog.
Yeah.
Mary Kay entrepreneurs are still entrepreneurs. They're still, I personally was in leadership. My focus was not so much the selling of the product side, but I could train on that side. So yes, that part of the bones are in place, but everybody chose to operate in a very different way. Not everybody was doing a skincare class. Some people were reinventing things, and they were going after law firms, HR professionals, and they were doing, different kinds of gifts, like a gift business or an employee gift business or spa days. I mean, there were a number of different ways to do it. Was it like what I'm doing now or Evan's doing now or Scotty did with Renet and, the trillions of dollars of real estate that went in there? No, it absolutely was different. But the main point of all of it was eat the damn frog. Whatever it is you don't want to do it first. And I think that speaks to any kind of an entrepreneur, because we all have things we don't want to do. If you're a speaker, you don't necessarily want to sit down and prospect for speaking events. Mm-hmm. But you got to do it 90 minutes a week. You've got to get on and prospect for speaking events, and chat with event managers. Or if you're, in any kind of sales, whether it's B2B or B2C, there's some level of prospecting. And not everybody just thinks, God, I was born to do this. So you got to eat that frog first thing. So that's kind of my take on that. And y'all can correct me if you want. But that's the big takeaway there.
From all the studies that we've done and all the research I've read, the number one leading indicator or activity for success in sales is prospecting. Mm-hmm. Can't get around it.
We don't need to avoid it, right?
No.
We can't avoid it if we want sales. It's like staring at the phone hoping it'll ring, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Hope is not a strategy. So speaking of prospecting, we're all on LinkedIn. We have a presence on LinkedIn, and we're all giving back to the community. I know there's a lot of people that are contributing a lot to the online communities and things like that. And I really, sometimes, some days, it gets to be to the point where it's like, how much time versus, how much energy, and what do I put out, and how do I put it out in a way that doesn't sound like I'm pushing my stuff, but still becoming, an authority in the market. And let's talk about some of the strategies that go along with prospecting. Scotty, I know that you have an audience, and you have the ability to reach out to individuals and put some incredible content out there. And so what are your thoughts on, how to expand and how to spend time and how to generate content that gets a result in your prospecting efforts?
Yeah, cool. I'm reminded when you asked that question of when I was teaching real estate salespeople how to sell real estate, there was an analogy we gave, which was It was 4 gives and then an ask. In other words, you've got to give some knowledge, you've got to give some information, you've got to share some stuff with the audience or your prospects, the people buying and selling houses, before you can ask, by the way, do you want to buy or sell a house? So it's 4 gives, then an ask as a simple formula. In other words, if all you're doing is asking, you're out of formula. With social media and everything today, it's more like it's 20 gives and then an ask. So you're posting content about and keeping people aware you're there, and then trying to find people to come into your warm zone. In other words, through conversations or comments, like some of the chat group right now, they've jumped into the warm zone. And now it's up to if Evan and Erika can say, well, I can help that person out. They can then follow up, or vice versa. They might reach out to Erika or Evan now. But it's that 20 gives, then an ask. In fact, it's almost like nowadays with social media, when it comes to posting and content, it's all give, no ask. The asking comes because people come into your warm zone and they're having a conversation, and all of a sudden they go, hey, Russ, how do I do this? Now all of a sudden you've got an inquiry, okay? Doesn't mean you've got a sale, but you've got an inquiry, and that's so much easier than going out and cold calling. Yeah. But if I had to pick right now, if I started a startup business right now, would I be on social media posting content, or to be out picking up the phone or walking indoors, talking to people that I needed to talk to? As Erika says, my avatar client, I wouldn't be on social media right now trying to build that business. I'd be on the phone, and I'd be out talking to people face to face. That's how I'd build the business. Just to give you one more thing before we pass over to Evan and Erika to follow up on this, I was asked recently, Scotty, do all the things that you did to start your business, do all those things still work today? And I'm going, hell yeah. In fact, even more so. Because if you've got the courage to pick up the phone or go and see people face to face, you stand out in the crowd right now. Because everyone else is trying to do it on social media. And they think social media is selling. And it's not. Social media is social media. It's not selling. So you stand out in the crowd. If you can learn some of the things that both Erika and Evan teach, your chances of prospecting and having that comfortable conversation for everybody and then getting a successful deal at the end will increase exponentially.
I like what Michael Baker says. Everyone can help someone, right?
Absolutely.
It's really how can we help people solve problems? I think you said it earlier, Scotty, is that we're finding solutions, we're asking questions, we're developing an answer and a response. So it's really important for us to understand that if you can help people solve their problems, and I think you nailed it, Scotty. It's like picking up the phone. It's like somebody's gonna say, "Who's calling me?" It's like I can't believe I'm receiving a phone call from somebody. So, any thoughts on that, Erika?
There's also prospecting face to face, I wasn't ever door to door per se, but I don't want to keep going back to Mary Kay, but my experience was decades ago, and mine was face to face. I would just chat people on the street, literally, and just make friends, and or I would be somebody who would make the connections, within corporations. So prospecting is prospecting, whether you're doing it on the level that we are all doing it now, because now my prospecting involves outreach to C-suite level types who are in companies that earn anywhere from 2 million annual recurring revenue to 20 million annual recurring revenue. And not being afraid to reach out to them. Because frankly, the higher up you go on that ladder, the nicer people get. And I think that's something that people don't realize. It's when you're talking to the gatekeepers that, she just bit my head off or whatever, But the higher up you go, typically people are nicer because they've been planning their 2023. They've been doing all these steps, and they don't have the stresses because they're following their own systems. So I don't know how far afield I got off on that question, but
well, it's all related. I mean, what we're doing here is, and John is one of my clients. Is most tell me that as the founder, I must sell the product to myself first. Sell the product first as a founder. Agree? Disagree?
Oh, yes, I totally agree, because I'm not a big fan
agree.
of Bill Gates. You won't find me buying a Microsoft product.
Yeah.
Yeah, people, and I say this from a podcasting background. When a C-suite is doing their own podcasting, now people see his heart for his company, his product, his service, his staff. And I mean, if I watch Bill Gates on an interview and I'm like, no, I'm out, click off. I don't want to know. So I think that's a very true statement.
Yeah, it strikes to the confidence, right? It goes right to the confidence. The number one mindset in Sell Like a Champ is belief. Your first customer should be yourself. If you can't sell yourself on it, don't even try to interact with anybody. I wanted to add too, Scotty, I got a guy that I was talking to about doing sales, and there are people out there that, want to do sales for him. He does some sports nutrition drinks and things like that. And they'll say, send me a QR code so that I can, post, pictures of me with your drinks and your supplements, and whoever buys through my QR code, give me a commission. That's all that people want to do now. That's how they want to sell, but that's not how sales works.
It's funny. I often say sales is a forgotten trade. And because the reason is, like, if I go back to when I was young, there was vacuum cleaner salespeople, there was your Mary Kays, there was your encyclopedia salespeople. There's all these traditional sales methods, right? And if you didn't actually work for one of those companies, someone in your family did, like your uncle did, or your auntie did, or someone did who learned this trade of going out and driving and building business and driving and building sales, having constructive conversations that get results. And I think nowadays people have forgotten what that actually means, and they get marketing mixed up thinking it's selling. They get advertising mixed up thinking it's selling. Well, as we know, because we're salespeople, is that it's not. That's marketing, that's advertising, and selling is a whole different ball game. Understanding your introduction, understanding your presentation, understanding your close, the system you use for your follow-up. Those things there are really important. Yet if you ask most people to write down their sales process, what's your sales system? What do you do for your introduction? What are your 3 closes, your test, your soft, and your hard close? What are those closes? Most people will go, oh, what do you mean?
Yeah.
It's a forgotten trade.
Yeah, those are all skills, right? They're all skills that have to be trained and practiced.
And they're simple to learn. They are really simple,
Yeah.
but it's a forgotten trade. We need sales coaches to help people understand those simple things. And they still work to this day, and they're still going to work in 10 years' time. They're still going to work in 50 years' time. So when John made that comment earlier, that he's the number one salesperson in his business, that is a fact. As a founder, he's the number one salesperson in the business. Even if he stops having conversations with people and he has a sales team, he's still the number one salesperson in his business.
That's right.
The spark that lights the fire, right?
Absolutely.
So, Scotty, you said something that's so true, about the closes and the intro, and Evan touched on this. The intro is so important, and people don't understand that you can disarm the person on the other end of the phone with the exact right intro, and suddenly they want to talk to you. They will reveal things to you. They will tell you exactly what their problem is without you saying, so where does it hurt?
The best phone call to make is when you have a solution to the pain, right? You're their hero. You already know it. They don't even know, but you're their next favorite person, and when you can go in with that level of confidence, then, it's a fun time.
I really, okay, so I'm going to be a little selfish right now before we wrap up here, because I enjoy and appreciate sales, and I love the idea of moving business forward, and I love helping individuals with video. However, not everybody has a pain with video. So my solution at times, I get the sense that it's not necessarily a solution everybody needs, and it's not a pain that everybody has to solve immediately. However, content creation, being online, building authority and visibility, I think is also a part of the marketing efforts that go along.
Yeah.
So and I believe in the product. I still show up every day and do something along these lines, and I help a lot of people with it. However, when you're searching for the ideal person that you need to have that conversation with, or pick up the phone and call them, how do you align that with the product that you have? Specifically, like marketing efforts. Everybody's in marketing. It seems like when I get online, it's like everybody in marketing shows up. So how do I need to think about those alignment questions, and who do I call? And the thing that comes to mind for me personally is asking questions, asking for help, and saying, hey, I'm looking for some feedback from the audience and feedback from the community. But are there some other things that I'm missing out on that I could actually explore and take ownership on?
Erika, you could probably help out here with the avatar client side of things, because that'll help with the construction of your questions and your conversations that you have. So, Erika, I think you could start on this one.
Yeah, I was going to ask Russ, just in general, who has resonated so far? Like what verticals, what decision-making level, who's been resonating with you so far? Like if you went and looked in your database, who's been resonating?
I've had higher end clients, IBM, Amazon, Exxon, people that wanted to do live streams for more visibility because of the contact that wasn't available. However, that, after 8 months or so of that's kind of slowed down a little bit. So a lot of people that are showing up in the conversations are levels of interest are more around coaches and trainers that want to be able to reach out and gain more audience remotely. So,
but in terms of the problem that you're solving for them, are they people that can afford your services? And if not, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when I talk about an avatar, it sounds like really it's more enterprise for you, correct?
For the shows. Yeah.
Okay.
So now what I've done is I've pivoted and I've actually started creating courses for, anyone that is interested in learning about content creation and making it easier for creating content. Because I know a lot of people are very technical and it's easy to create content. However, the people that want to create content, that may need some assistance. So I'm creating that so I could train people to become more proficient at creating content. So,
okay.
So it's like, each end of the spectrum, but it's still, it's still a work in progress.
No, that's all good. I think where you're at right now with the live streaming and the video production, I mean, we would have to do more of a deep dive and really look at who was the decision maker, what was their 3 a.m. nightmare that they were waking up with. No, seriously, what are the things that they're Googling, to solve the problem, and we can do that deep dive on who the avatar is. But I think you're on a right path in that you have your upsell and you have one downsell. And I would say keep that really, really simple because you are a solopreneur. The upsell for the enterprise and then the downsell for the more, the coaches, the clients, the solopreneurs, the people who will be maybe 6 figures is their annual recurring revenue. And they're like, I don't need all of that. I can learn it from a course. And then they take the course and they're like, oh crap, no, I need Russ.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to just show up and have somebody produce it for you than it is to
right
pull all the levers.
And that can happen too. There will be people that'll say, oh, I thought I was technologically proficient. I've taken the course. I don't want to deal with this. I'm just going to call Russ. But it sounds like you have 2 different avatars going on there. And so I'm happy to have that call.
I would agree. I was going to say, you may want to think about it from a brand strategy perspective first, meaning, the title of your show, the way that you're speaking to people, what is the brand message that you're sending? Because, the example that I like to give was working with a hospital system that was a children's hospital, and they were competing with some other hospital systems that had way more money, way more specialty. But the idea was getting them to understand, what is your brand going to represent? Is it going to be about the community, or is it going to be about world class? Well, they couldn't compete in world class because there was another hospital system that was hiring all these world class doctors. So the community hospital that was for kids, they wanted these world class doctors, but they couldn't afford them. So they couldn't compete in that world. They couldn't try to be world class. They had to find the brand strategy where they had a competitive advantage and go down that path. And then you have to kind of think about, well, what are our reasons to believe that we can, dominate this brand strategy? Then you've got research, right? Or the CEO or the entrepreneur, he or she goes out and they try to get some traction. And so you're testing these markets and really kind of narrowing down, okay, what is the brand strategy that, kindness, maybe you go after people that don't get along with other people and they need somebody kind riding shotgun on the video call with them. There are some people out there that aren't easy to get along with. You could help them go a long way with your video show or something to that degree, but getting down to that type of specificity in your brand strategy, I think.
That's incredibly valuable. Scotty, anything to add to that?
Yeah, mate, I'm gonna share something with you right now that will help you out. It's one that I don't have as a video on System 1357 yet, but I've got a bucket load of videos on there that may help you out, Russ. No problems at all. And Erika's already mentioned a few of them earlier.
Yeah.
So feel free to go and watch them. But I'm going to talk about conditions, actions, and needs. So when you're looking at your prospect list, and you're wondering who should I prospect with, what you need to know before you even pick up the phone is a little bit of research, which is so easy to do today. It's easier today than it was 20 years ago.
Oh, heck yeah.
Before you pick up the phone or have that conversation or send that message, what are they doing? Sorry. So basically conditions, actions, needs. What's happening, what are they doing, and what do they need? Pretty simple formula. If you know some of that, you can then have a conversation with them about potentially what their hotspot is, where their hurt is, or where their needs are. Okay. And if you can have a look at that, it doesn't matter what size business it is, you've then got an idea of what that conversation is going to look like, and at least have a constructive conversation with that prospect with some answers, because you've already had a look at it yourself. You're not going in blind. You've done a little bit of research. Right, I'm going to ring up Erika. I'm going to look at Erika's profile. I'm going to go to her website. I'm going to have a look at what's happening in her space, where she's at in her business, what it looks like that she's doing, and what's it look like she needs. And you then make an assessment and go, I can help Erika out. I can do something to help Erika. Now, if she doesn't have a hotspot or a hurt, you then have to work out a way to create a need. And that's when the real sale happens. You have to create a need if Erika's an avatar client. So there's 3 things that might help you out. Conditions, actions, and needs. It's number 3 in System 1357. Conditions, actions, needs. It works for sales. It works for leadership. It works for business. Okay. But I haven't actually done a video on that in selling on System 1357 yet. But conditions, actions, needs. So that might help you out with working out your prospecting and what to say in those conversations, and how to start that conversation, and how to ask constructive questions. Because the power of questions, I have videos on that. The power of questions is so important to understand.
That's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and the conditions really speak to the problem. Just sitting down and brainstorming, what are the problems these people are experiencing? And I would do it at the enterprise level, and I would do it at that solopreneur level that you were talking about. And you could end up with 15, 16, 17, 18, 20 problems. Guess what? That's content, right? Yeah. And then you'll have maybe 4 solutions. for all of those, right? You've got your solutions. But if you want to find out, I just learned this today from Judy Hayes, and I'm going to share it. The polls. People don't use the polls correctly, right? At all. First of all, they don't ever tell you what the results of the poll were after the poll has been done. But they definitely don't use it for things like prospecting. So, Russ, you could put out a poll centered around live streaming or centered around video and ask the question of, have you experienced whatever, X, Y, and Z with live streaming? Do you use live streaming, or are there things you want to learn about live streaming? Whatever that question is, right? And then you'll have like, yes, I have no idea, I don't have time, no. You'll have your different answers. And the people who are giving you answers like they don't know what they're doing, they like it, but they can't, whatever, those are your prospects.
Yeah.
Right? They're openly admitting, and then you just kind of go in and engage with them too. Now, they might not be your avatar. So you kind of got to get really targeted with that question in the poll to make sure you're hitting the avatar. But that's a method of prospecting too that people don't use.
Yeah.
And marketing. Yeah. I mean, that's a method of marketing that a lot of people forget that, oh yeah, research is part of marketing. It's a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and as we all know, it's today, like you said, Scotty, it's very easy to do some research and actually find out what people are doing and what they need and how we can help them. So it's a great opportunity. Well, I hope that this has been valuable for everyone today. It's like I really do have all the gratitude in the world for you joining us on this pirate broadcast at night. Scotty, Evan, Erika, anything that we can add value to the community, that value about 20 times, and keep going, keep adding it. So, any closing thoughts about sales and commitment and consistency, Scotty?
Look, I've got a whole heap of them. But the wonderful thing about selling is, the wonderful thing about sales and selling, whether it's your business or another business, if it's the right opportunity, you have unlimited income potential. So you, in theory, can keep selling and keep getting paid. It's just your ability to be able to sell more and deliver the product. So the beautiful thing about sales is you can realize your full potential. And if you're worth it and you can prove it, you'll get paid it. And the selling is the bit in the middle that proves it, that you have the ability to have that conversation, create a solution that everyone's happy with, and people will spend their money. It's a conversation. I don't like the word sales, but it is selling because it's front of house. But it's that conversation. So if you're worth it and you can prove it, you'll get paid it.
Gold, pure gold. Evan?
The biggest thing I can say is that once you know, right, you become consciously competent, kind of what your barriers are, it's a lot easier to, take yourself to the next level in whatever you're trying to do in life. And that's why I think just the whole mindset piece is so important. And, we do have at our website, springboard.consulting or selllikeachamp.com. You can go there, you can take an assessment. That's free. It'll tell you exactly what thinking patterns are helping to drive your success and what thinking patterns are getting in the way of your success. And just having that knowledge right there, it's completely free, but just having that knowledge about yourself, we used to teach one of the number one habits was to know yourself, because it was about understanding emotional intelligence and being able to do things for others, right? To help people so that you're not coming off as a slimy salesperson. Well, there are those negative things that can get in the way, and you can start to feel or come across that way. And we all need to do things to help ourselves in life in general to get past that. And it's out there, it's available now. You hear a lot of people talk about mindset and you got to have the right mindset. Well, this is scientifically based performance mindsets, and then performance-based barriers or barriers to performance mindset. They've got them designated. It's out there. There's things that you can do to improve your performance. And, those resources are there. And I think they're the place to start, because if you can think about it first, right, then it can go to your heart where your passion lives, and you can accomplish pretty much anything you put your mind to, which goes back to what, Scotty's talking about. You'll be successful. You'll be worth it.
I love it. Erika, bring us home.
I don't know if I can cap off what these two have so brilliantly just summarized, other than to say that, thank you everybody for attending and leaving your wonderful comments and your insight. There was a lot of wisdom going on in the chat, in the comments, excuse me. And if you're not in sales, know that you really are in sales. It doesn't matter what your title is. As we were seeing with John, you are in sales regardless of title. You can ask any attorney and any doctor who went into private practice, and they will all say, why didn't somebody tell me how to do marketing and sales when I was in school? Because they're doing marketing and sales.
It's so true. It is so true. Well, like I said, I really appreciate all your time and energy and contributions to the community. It's really amazing to get people together. And normally the Pirate broadcast has been, one-on-one, and this group thing at night is another way of expanding on the conversation and helping other people understand that we're all in this together. This is the thing that we're doing, and we have to understand that we're not that much different than each other. We're not that much different than the next person that's working through their challenges and putting their foot forward and moving the business forward. So all the gratitude in the world for everyone being here. Thank you, Scotty, Evan, Erika. As always,
great meeting you all.
Yes, thank you so much for being here, everyone in the community. Thank you for the comments and everything that you have going on. And as always, kindness is cool, smiles are free, and you enjoy the day. Take care, everyone.
See you, everyone.
Bye. Toodle pip.
Thank you for joining the Pirate Broadcast. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and share it across your social media channels. I would love the opportunity to help others grow in their business. The Pirate Syndicate is a platform where you show up, we produce the show. It's that easy. If you want to be seen, be heard, and be talked about, join the Pirate